What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry, a Tuesday morning after Monday night football edition of the Next Pats podcast. What a mess that was between the Patriots and Bears on Monday night. We have a very special guest, though, to break it all down for us. It's Patriots legend, Super Bowl hero. Maybe should have been Super Bowl MVP back in early 2017. No, okay. Trophy goes to Tom Brady. But we got James White, the next best thing for this week's podcast, to break down for us what might be going on in the Patriots locker room right now as Bill Belichick toggles between quarterbacks seemingly reluctant to commit to either Mac Jones or Bailey Zappe as the starter moving forward. He's had ample opportunity in many different instances with reporters to throw his support behind one or the other. When Mac Jones is healthy, will he be the starter? Bill Belichick calls it a hypothetical question and opts not to answer. When I asked him on Tuesday if Mac Jones was healthy enough to play the entirety of Monday night's game, he again said that was a hypothetical question. I brought up to him the fact that Mac Jones told us on Monday night after the game that he was feeling pretty good. And Belichick said, right, yeah, well, it wasn't 70 plays, as if to indicate, had he been given, a full workload, Mac Jones that is, that maybe his ankle would not have responded all that well. Which brings us back to the question of maybe why play him in the first place? Was it simply because he was pushing to play and he was technically medically cleared? So Bill Belichick just wanted to get him involved, show that he's still the starter of this team. He's still a captain of this team. He's still valuable to everything that they're doing on a weekly basis, and give him a little bit of action to throw him a bone, so to speak. Hey, you've worked really hard to get back. We appreciate it. If you want to play, we're going to allow you to play, but we're not going to allow you to play all that much. Is that really the case? And if it was that the right decision by Bill Belichick? Or should he, as the head coach, look at Mac Jones and say, I don't feel as though you're ready? Maybe Bill Belichick felt that he could have beaten the Bears with Bailey Zappe or Mac Jones, or some combination of the two. Clearly not the case. That's where the Patriots are right now in 2022. They're probably not a good enough team to just roll it out there against any opponent. The Bears are arguably the worst team in football by some metrics. They're not good enough, the Patriots are, to roll the balls out against anybody and assume to win, expect to win. And clearly, players in the locker room confused as to why there was a quarterback shift. Players reportedly, according to Mark Daniels of MassLive.com, one player in particular going up to Mac Jones and apologizing well after the game, telling him that he didn't realize that he was going to be benched. And there's the optics of it all. To have Mac Jones's last snap be an interception, that looks like a performance-based benching. But when I put that to Bill Belichick after the game, he said that's not what it was. You can write whatever you want, but that wasn't it. So it does seem as though the plan was to play both quarterbacks. Why? Why would you feel as though that would be a successful way of going about things against any NFL opponent? I don't know, but those seeds were certainly planted when you have Adam Schefter and Troy Aikman on the ESPN broadcast and Joe Buck saying before the game, don't be surprised if you see two quarterbacks play. Then Bill Belichick told Lisa Salters at halftime that he had planned to play two all along, and the plan was to play two in the second half as well. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. He said it was because of the score. I asked him on Tuesday morning, there were two drives early in the third quarter for the Patriots where it was just a two-score game. Why go with Bailey Zappe if the plan was to play two quarterbacks? Why not play Mac Jones in that instance? Why not play him maybe coming out of halftime? Was that based on some perceived momentum on Bill Belichick's part? He, as you might expect, declined to answer. So we're left with more questions. I think players in that locker room are left with questions. I think the quarterbacks themselves may be left with questions. Let me tell you a couple different things that I have been told over the last 24 hours about this particular situation. An NFL source reached out to me at halftime of last night's game. So think about this. National broadcast, you're hearing Zappe finally gets in the game. He leads the Patriots to 2 touchdown drives. We could talk about the specifics of whether or not the Jacoby Myers touchdown was a good throw, about how and why players seem to be running so freely open down the field when Bailey Zappe is in the game. But a league source reached out to me at halftime after those 2 touchdown drives for the Patriots saying the offense looks a lot different with Bailey Zappe in the game. And it's not because of how it's run, one quarterback versus another. It's the plays that are called. And so it was highlighted to me, why can't the Patriots run those same types of plays for Mac Jones to see how it looks? And it's hard to argue. Really going back these last several weeks, Patriots have been heavy on under center, play action with Bailey Zappe. It's created those shots down the field for him. The screen game was used very frequently with Bailey Zappe. Almost 20% of his throws through his first 3 games in a Patriots uniform were screens. The Patriots were near the bottom of the league in both those categories during the first 3 weeks of the NFL season with Mac Jones on the field. Now, he did, according to Pro Football Focus, run 2 play action passes in the game last night against the Chicago Bears as we record this on Tuesday afternoon. But for one reason or another, they simply did not have the same kinds of results that the Patriots got when Bailey Zappe was under center. Hard play action, shot down the field to Jacoby Myers on that leak play that you see across the NFL these last few years. Some explosive plays, whether it's a tight end or a slot receiver going all the way across the field, cutting free against the grain of an opposing defense. And then a 50-50 ball, shot play down the sideline to Devontae Parker. That was play action as well. So there's something about this Patriots offense, about the play calls when Zappe's in there versus Mac, that there are some people in the league wondering, why can't you do what you do with Zappe with Mac Jones? I can also tell you what I've heard from the Chicago vantage point in the last 24 hours is that the Bears spent the vast majority of their week preparing for Mac Jones. And despite Bears coach Matt Eberflus saying that the Bears had expected in some way or prepared for in some way to see both quarterbacks, that they were looking at Mac Jones as being the guy for this week. And when Bailey Zappe came in, indications that I got were they weren't scared. Had one member of the Bears organization tell me when Zappe came in, I was surprised. He made a couple of good throws, but he's small and doesn't have much zip on the ball. He has a hard time seeing over the line when he's in the pocket. It was clear to me that the Bears defense adjusted in such a way when they understood that, okay, he's getting the ball out quickly. He doesn't want to invite pressure. He's also 6 feet and 1/2 inch. So if he's in the pocket and he's getting it out quickly, why would we waste our time hand fighting with Patriots offensive linemen trying to rush the quarterback when we can simply jump up and turn this into a volleyball game? I counted at least 4 pass breakups at the line of scrimmage in the second half when Bailey Zappe was in the game. So I think what we saw last night highlighted some of the deficiencies that we knew Bailey Zappe came into the league with when it comes to size, when it comes to arm strength, when it comes to the ability to lead a team through the air when you're facing some pressure. We're going to talk to James White about this very soon. But they were behind on the scoreboard. And when you're behind on the scoreboard, a lot of those play action shots that the Patriots had benefited from so significantly over the first 3 weeks of Bailey Zappe's Patriots tenure, I would say 3 weeks plus. You include those 2 big throws down the field on Monday night. When those go up in smoke and you have to be a drop back from the pocket kind of passer, can you win? Can you throw accurately into tight windows? Can you be that guy that leads the team back when they're behind on the scoreboard? Bailey Zappe clearly wasn't able to do that against the Bears. Mac Jones, I believe, has shown some promise as far as those things go. Has he been the most consistent quarterback in the NFL this year? Suffice it to say, no, he has not. But I think he has shown signs of being able to be that guy that can lead a team from behind, throw the ball down the field accurately, with touch, with anticipation. He just hasn't done it consistently enough, which now is inviting a lot of these questions for Bill Belichick and questions that we'll pose all week long here as we build up to this Patriots-Jets game in Week 8. Last thing I wanted to mention before we get to our interview with James White is this. Because this is the Next Pats podcast and because we focus so closely on quarterback play, not only here in New England, but across the league, it is interesting to me just how the Patriots have handled their second-year quarterback, dating all the way back to early this offseason when they understood that Josh McDaniels was going to be leaving to be head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a league where young quarterbacks, the ones who succeed, are nurtured. There's a culture and a talent pool that is cultivated around those players. They are built, the rosters are, around those players' skill sets. Josh Allen, to me, is the most extreme example, not because he is just an extreme talent, but it's the most extreme example in terms of being very raw as an individual player with his individual skill set, but also in terms of the overinvestment maybe at times that the Bills have made in players around him, whether it's Stephon Diggs or all the draft picks that they've made on the offensive side of the ball, bringing in running backs left and right here to make sure that he's as propped up as possible early on in his NFL career. We saw him go from being one of the worst quarterbacks in football his first year plus to now arguably being the best in football. And maybe he was on track for that kind of development no matter what. But he had some consistency on the coaching staff with Brian Daboll. Now Ken Dorsey is there, who had been with him years previous. So there remains consistency on the sidelines, up in the coaching booth. And the talent has been reinfused year after year after year offensively in order to help him out. Now, I think the Patriots did the second thing for Mac Jones in some respects this year, where they add Devontae Parker. They spend a second-round pick on Tyquan Thornton. So they have some depth at that receiver position. They have bodies who can get down the field and be used in a variety of different ways. I think in Thornton's case, which we talked about on last week's podcast, you can use him in the short area. You can use him in the red zone. He's not just a deep threat. Devontae Parker may be primarily a deep threat, but either way, you needed that in your offense. So good on the Patriots for recognizing that and trying to help out Mac Jones. But when it comes to the consistency offensively and how he's been handled now in season, that hasn't been there. Even though Matt Patricia and Joe Judge are Patriots guys, a lot of experience under Bill Belichick and a Bill Belichick quote-unquote offense, well, the offense changed. And we've been over that ad nauseum, but you talk to the players, it's a new offense with new terminology, with new philosophies, new coaching styles on the sidelines, new personalities to get accustomed to. And now we're not even halfway through Mac Jones' second season with all of this newness around him. And his job security is being threatened because it hasn't gone the way that they hoped. Now, does Mac Jones have responsibility to bear as far as that goes with the turnovers? No question. And I'm not saying as though those interceptions that Mac Jones has thrown this year should be looked at by Bill Belichick purely as the cost of doing business, shrug your shoulders and move on. But I do think there has to be a level of patience shown if you're going to take any young quarterback in the NFL, whether he's beyond his years in terms of his understanding of football, as Mac Jones was as a rookie, or not. And you have to understand that these players are not finished products by the end of their first year into their second year. And you may have to take your lumps in order to get that player to where he's going to end up in terms of getting close to maybe reaching his ceiling. And to me, at least right now, the way it looks, and based on what we're hearing, where Bill Belichick isn't committing to Mac Jones, even though it sounds like guys in the locker room, and I know guys in the locker room are ready to commit and have committed already. They consider this Mac Jones's team. So why not show the patience that other teams have shown with young quarterbacks who struggle, believing that that's going to be what's best for your football team at the end of the day? I still come back to Bill Belichick being given opportunity after opportunity to state it very plainly. When Mac Jones is healthy, he's our quarterback. He's not willing to do that. It's only natural then to wonder where his belief is in that first round pick in Mac Jones. He was glowing about Mac Jones's development over the course of this past offseason. He's a far better player this year than he was last year, is what Bill Belichick told us. But where is that belief right now as we sit here headed into week 8, approaching the midway point of Mac Jones's second season? I can tell you one person who believes in Mac Jones. It's our guy, James White. You love him. You're going to love listening to him as an analyst. We're thrilled to bring him on the Next Pats podcast. Was thrilled to have him as a guest on a very regular basis on what was Monday Night Patriots, is now The Breakdown, with both Rob Ninkovich back in the day, Ted Johnson, James was always so generous with his time, whether he was on TV with us or he was in the locker room. And as a reporter, I needed to try to figure out how I could have a few different questions asked. One of the smartest, most well-respected, hardest working guys in that Patriots locker room from the time he was drafted in 2014 to the time he retired just a few months ago. So we're thrilled to have him here on the Next Pats podcast. Here's our conversation with James White right now. All right, there he is, Patriots legend, James White. We're so excited, James, to have you on Next Pats here with us. You're always such a great guest with us while you were a player on NBC Sports Boston. Now we get to have you on Next Pats in your post-playing days. Thanks for being with us, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, James, so it's 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning after a Monday night game. The Patriots actually, the players at least, have the day off today. So no meeting in the facility. I was going to ask you, what's Bill Belichick telling his team right now? But could it be a good thing to have a day off? Or as a player, would you need a little closure after a game like the one we saw between the Patriots and the Bears?
No, it's kind of a good thing that they played on Monday night, because even if they won, you kind of put the game behind you. When they come in on Wednesday, you go right onto your next opponent, which is the Jets, which is another going to be a tough opponent for them to go up against. Obviously, nobody expected that game to go that way last night. The players didn't. I'm sure the Bears probably didn't even expect that game to go like that. But you got to give a lot of credit to those guys. They had a good game plan. Justin Fields played well, and they pretty much won at every facet of the game. And I know that's not the way the Patriots wanted to play. And you could tell by the look on a lot of those guys' faces when they're doing their press conferences. It was definitely tough to go out like that for sure. But they'll turn the page. On Wednesday, they'll be more focused on the Jets than the Bears. But that film will come up probably sometime during the bye week. Or, they may splotch in some of the splash plays that hurt them, because some teams will use the plays that work well against you the following weeks and later on during the season. So you got to make sure you pay attention to those.
So I understand, and Bill Belichick obviously lives his coaching life this way, is move on, turn the page, right? Good or bad. And obviously he's had a lot of success doing that. And so I get the merits of doing it, especially coming off a Monday night game. Now you have a short week. But when the game is as strange as the one we saw on Monday, James, and the quarterback situation seems to elicit a lot of questions, not just from us, but maybe from players too, given some of the reactions we saw last night. Does Bill owe an explanation to his team in terms of how the quarterback position was used Monday night and will be used moving forward?
No, he doesn't. Obviously, we've never really been in that. Well, I had never been in that situation while I was playing. The quarterback who started the games in the beginning of the season pretty much started them all, aside from the year, when Tom was suspended for the 4 games or whatnot. But it's a different situation. You have 2 young guys that can possibly win you football games. To me, I think Mac is still the starting quarterback. I think Bailey did a great job filling in for him. Like I said, in most of the spots where he came in, he wasn't under too much pressure. When he came in versus the Packers, obviously they didn't allow him to do too much. It was just screen passes, hand the ball off, and just try not to lose the game. And obviously they weren't able to win that one. And for the rest of the games, he really didn't have too much pressure on him. Last night was the first time he probably really had some true NFL pressure on him, and it kind of showed a little bit. I know he came in, he provided a spark, which was great, but it's a long football game. You got to be able to sustain that success. And when you're behind, those defensive ends, those defensive linemen, they're pinning their ears back. Those DBs that's what they love. It's time for them to make plays because it's straight passing situations. But I said it's a learning curve for him. I thought it's great for him, though, because it'll help him be a better football player, because I know he probably didn't obviously expect to be playing football this early in his career based on the QB situation that we had with Mac Jones and Hoyer being in there. Unfortunately, Hoyer ended up getting hurt. But I said it's a good problem to have, but it'll definitely going to be obviously a QB controversy or whatever somewhere down the line if it's not just this year. You draft a guy a year after you draft a guy in the first round. Obviously you believe that guy could possibly win you some football games if you drafted him. So it's interesting for sure.
So you say Bill doesn't owe the team an explanation. Do you think he will give them an explanation? Can you see him at the front of a team meeting? Maybe it's Wednesday when the team gets back together and says, hey, guys, I know there's a lot of questions about the quarterback position, but this is how I decided to handle things. I'm paraphrasing things we've heard him say in meetings before when NFL Films has been in the team meeting room. I can think back to 2009. They did a documentary, and that it does feel like when there's sort of an elephant in the room that he will at least occasionally address it. But what, given your experience with him, do you think he'll say anything about it, or it will be all Jets starting Wednesday?
I don't think he'll necessarily explain himself, because I don't think he necessarily has to do that. He's the head coach of the football team. I think he may just say, Mac's going to be the QB going forward, or Bailey's going to be the QB going forward, or something like that, just to, give everybody some clarity. Because obviously that's going to be the questions all throughout the week. Everybody's going to be getting asked the quarterback situation, and kind of want to nip that in the bud. But I mean, then again, he may not as well, because he may want the Jets to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. So you never really know how he's going to tackle it on, but he may tell them, Mac's going to be the quarterback, but don't say anything to the media, that type of thing. You never know. You never know how he's going to handle the situation. But like I said, he doesn't really owe anybody an explanation. Obviously, he had him, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, they had a plan for the game. And I said, after Mac threw the interception and whatnot, they felt it was time to put Bailey in. And obviously, it didn't matter last night because nobody really played very well.
Right. And Devin McCourty said exactly that when I asked him about, hey, does a little quarterback uncertainty mean there's uncertainty for the entire locker room going into a game? And he said, hey, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. If we're going to give up that many points, we're not going to win many games here. I wanted to ask you, James, what did you make of the decision to pull Mac Jones? It's just sort of it's obviously so strange because, like you said, we're just not used to seeing quarterbacks toggled back and forth. Yeah. But the explanations after the fact were hard to square too. If Mac Jones was injured, why play him at all? If you were just trying to knock some rust off, why not play him a little bit more? Bill told me that he wasn't benched for performance reasons, but the last play that he had was an interception. It looks the way it looks. So how did it look to you? What was going through your head when you saw them make the switch?
I mean, I thought it was a little premature for me. It was only 10-0. It was still, I think it was like the second quarter or something like that, or maybe, I think it was the second quarter. But I thought there's still a lot of football to play. Obviously, I said they had a plan going into the game, and I said they felt it was time for it. But me personally, I thought I would have left Mac in there at least till halftime or whatnot. I think maybe they anticipated, winning the game, pretty favorably, and didn't exactly go that way. So maybe they're just looking for a spark. And obviously Bailey did provide that. Obviously the flame kind of ran out a little bit in that second half. The offense really didn't do too much, and the defense, couldn't really stop the Bears last night. So in my opinion, I thought it was just a little premature, but like I said, they had a plan, and like I said, they put that into effect pretty early.
When you were playing, James, did Bill ever make any decisions that had the locker room kind of like, and there are some obvious ones right off the top of our head, whether it's not playing Malcolm in the Super Bowl, or, I can remember sort of an obscure game, but in 2015, you were there, that you guys tried the Nate Ebner drop kick, didn't go so great against the Eagles. He is unorthodox, and it's worked out a lot for him over the years. And I've spoken to him about taking risks in games, and he understands, if they don't go well, the players might be looking at you a little bit sideways. So is there any of that? Is he justified in his concern when it comes to those things? And do you think Patriots might be looking at him a little sideways after Monday night?
I don't think people look at him sideways. I think that's what happens as a coach. You got to make some decisions sometimes. If it works, everybody's going to be patting you on the back. And if it doesn't, then they're going to be coming after you. It's kind of sort of like Brandon Staley with the going forward on fourth down the past few years. He just like, we're going to play aggressive. That's just the way we're going to call it. Everybody feels comfortable with it. You got to live by it, and you're going to die by it. If it works, and everybody's cheering you on. If it doesn't, then it's just like what are you doing? But that's just the nature of the beast. Like I said, it's a lose-lose situation in a sense. Well, not a lose-lose, I guess. But I said when it works, like I said, nobody's going to say anything. But as soon as you start losing and it looks bad, then everybody's going to question you. That's just the nature of the beast.
James, with what you know of, and you obviously spent time with both these quarterbacks in training camp, but with what you know of Mac Jones, how do you think he'll handle this upcoming week?
I think he'll handle it fine. Like I said, nobody played very well last night, and everybody has to turn the page. I thought he handled it great last night. He was still there supporting Bailey when he was playing. He's the first one to congratulate him after he threw the touchdown. So I think he'll handle it well. I think it'll, kind of ignite a little bit more fire underneath him. I think everybody in the building is going to have a little bit more sense of urgency. Obviously, they're playing a good football team. The Jets, they're rolling this year, and they have a lot of talented young guys. And like I said, they got to be prepared because it's going to be a tough football game. And like I said, I think to me, Mac is still the guy for the team. And he said he's the guy who you saw do it for, 17, 18 weeks, whatever it was last year. And, Bailey, obviously, he's showed a lot of potential, but he hasn't, been through an entire football season. There's a lot of ups and downs, especially for a young quarterback. And you're able to see what Mac did last year after playing a full season. So for me, I think he's the guy for it. He has the right mental process for it. He's been through an entire NFL season, which can be very long, especially for a young quarterback. So I think he'll handle it very well.
Do you think it was eye-opening at all to the coaching staff? Obviously, I mean, they know these players better than any of us, having watched them in practice, but to see Bailey have to play in a situation where the team's behind and the play action game sort of goes out the window and you have to be a drop back passer. And we saw how it went. I mean, they just really had a hard time moving the ball through the air late in that game. Do you think that may have shifted any opinions within the building about how to use these guys moving forward?
It's possible. Like I said, he wasn't really under too much pressure prior to last night. And it's hard when you have to drop back and throw for the entire rest of the game when you're trailing. Like I said, it's everybody's anticipating pass plays on every single play. Defensive backs are playing a little bit more aggressive because they have a lead, and they're going to take a few more chances, going to try and make plays and things of that nature. So it becomes a little bit more tough. But like I said, I think it was a great learning experience for him because, like I said, you want to get that, as soon as possible in your playing career because, like I said, it's going to come up at some point. And next time it comes up for him, I think he'll be a little bit more prepared for it. But I think they have two good young quarterbacks. And like I said, obviously they'll have to make a decision down the line whenever, contracts come up and things of that nature or before then. But I said, it's a good problem to have, like I said, because you never know when injuries may happen. You want to have, a guy that's behind your starting quarterback that can still win you football games.
The last question I wanted to ask you, James, is about one of the guys at your position, Rhamondre Stevenson. He scores again last night. And as you said, it's not as though anybody had a great game, but he has had a great season. And he looks like a really special talent. What is it about him that you think will allow him to have continued success here, not only this season, but moving forward?
Well, I mean, he's coachable. He takes the coaching. He's willing to put the work in. I said he started off a little slow his rookie season, during training camp and all that. But, once he was able to get his, foot in the ground and, get on the field a little bit more, they gave him some more opportunities. You can see he was going to be a special football player. I think him and Damien are two special guys. They, have Rhamondre being the guy who's going to, step in and be the third down guy and, be in those patch situations. And it looks like he's getting a little bit more comfortable with it each and every week. And it looks like the quarterbacks are looking for him a lot more as, kind of that security blanket. And he's done a great job with it. And I think he'll continue to do it. And like I said, I think they got to ride those backs. I think, especially with, the quote unquote QB controversy, just hand the ball to those backs and let them get the work, dump it down to them. That kind of simplifies things.
All right, James White, thank you so much for being with us here on Next Pats. It's obviously a little bit of an odd situation for all of us covering the team, maybe for some of those in the locker room that aren't used to having a couple quarterbacks play in a given game, but nobody better to be with us here today to tell us how things might be playing out in that Patriots locker room. Thanks so much for being with us, James.
No problem at all.
All right, there you have it. James White felt as though it was a little premature for Bill Belichick to take out Mac Jones when he did, though the way he puts it, Bill Belichick doesn't necessarily owe an explanation to his players. Might he discuss it? Might he acknowledge that elephant in the room and maybe even name a starting quarterback moving forward, swearing his players to secrecy? That may happen as well. But I'm with James when he talks about maybe the Patriots felt as though they could get away with this kind of plan against that particular team. I think that was a factor here. The Bears, again, arguably one of the worst in football. I get it. On any given Sunday, anything should be able to happen. Last night was proof of that. But it would surprise me if the Bears and their ineptitude going into this week was not a factor in Bill Belichick making the call that he did with his quarterbacks on Monday night. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Next Pats podcast, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate, comment, subscribe. We've loved the feedback that we got from last week's episode with Kurt Warner. If you want to check that out, we did a lot of talk on Bailey Zappe versus Mac Jones. A lot of it still applies this week, but he did a great job getting into some detail as to why the offense is a little bit different with Bailey Zappe and how it has been simplified for the rookie 4th rounder. So check that out if you haven't already, and keep an eye out for our next Pats episode coming at you next week after Patriots Jets. Talk to you then.